What's happening right now could very well be the beginning of the absolute collapse of the gaming industry. And I know a lot of you watching are very much interested in seeing that happening. And trust me, boys, so am I. So am I. I am sick and tired of these AAA developers ignoring us, mistreating us, and openly even mocking us in a lot of situations. They are gonna get what they deserve sooner or later. At the end of the day, they may not understand this, but we are the ones who choose who survives and who gets left behind and go bankrupt. And a lot of these companies deserve to go bankrupt. And currently the situation is that Riot Games, yes, Riot Games, and some people have missed this, but Riot Games is one of the largest video game companies in the world. It is absolutely massive. It is worth countless billions at this point. It had League of Legends, which was one of the most massive video games ever created, and was one of the most massive things that existed at that time. It was the most massive thing, in fact. They were making literally multiple hundreds of millions per day at their peak. So they have a lot of money. And this money is running out. Because as it turns out, well, when you release lackluster things and the only thing that seemingly gets you money nowadays is $500 skins, yes, that's a real thing if you did not know in League of Legends, then things are not exactly going well now. The Riot MMO, which got canned, and now they have to start again over from literally square zero, a full reboot in fact, probably already costed them a couple of hundred millions to start designing, even at the low stage that they were already. The recent game releases, completely not loved, and no one cares about them. No one has even heard about most of them. So it's not looking good for Riot Games. And if Riot falls, oh wow, it's gonna be a huge shakeup for the industry. A lot of people are gonna be worrying that they're next, because if Riot falls, then, well, pretty much only Valve is safe.
This one's about Riot, and they do have a lot of money, though they're struggling to put the S in Riot Games, because their most recent game launched a month ago. Yes, a new game from Riot. Loads of people have no idea, though. I kinda had no idea. Now, the development team has just been cut in half, and it's just the latest in a string of money-driven decisions, because maybe Riot's infinite money tap is running dry. You see, a decade ago, League of Legends was unstoppable, so Riot expanded. New genres, new games. They bought indie teams outright and spent millions trying to build a grand empire. And then, post-pandemic,
yeah, Riot became the new Blizzard. They literally did, by the way, if you did not know. Again, a lot of people don't know the history of Riot Games or how much impact they really have. They have a lot of impact. They have an unreasonable amount of power and impact in the industry. And they became the new Blizzard Entertainment. They now had the stamp of approval and quality on everything that they did. They were the company that's like, okay, we should have released this year, but we're gonna make it better, so we're gonna release it 2 years later. And everyone loved it.
Something seems to have changed. We've seen them circle the wagons around League's monetization. You know, $300, $400 skins. Ouch. There's experiments like Riot Forge, which seemed promising, but were killed. There's Hytale being cut loose. And now Riot are so afraid of losing out that they won't even try to give a game a chance if it doesn't succeed off the bat. And to me, it's an insane story, because maybe this game could have got word of mouth over time, or any of those things that could have got people into it. I don't know about you, but most of the people...
Well, you can say that about pretty much any game, to be fair.
I know, even ones who do care about fighting games, had kind of no idea, didn't really notice that it launched. This is weird, so let's get into it. The game is called 2XKO. Not exactly the most SEO-friendly title, not exactly the most memorable one. Maybe that didn't help them, but their staff had worked on this game for nearly a decade, and some were laid off with about 30 minutes notice. On February 9th, 20 days after launch, Riot announced that 50% of the dev team, around 80 people, would be laid off. Something went deeply wrong with the launch of Riot's very own fighting game. And the thing is, we know this is because of the weak console release. And that has happened just 3 months after PC Early Access. And we know because Riot said it themselves. Here's the quote. As we expanded from PC to console, we saw consistent trends in how players were engaging with 2XKO. The game has resonated with a passionate core audience, but overall momentum hasn't reached the level needed to support a team of this size long term. You know, it's funny, for a company who really does seem to be okay with investing lots of money into big projects that will take a long time, say the MMO, it seems they weren't willing to invest the time needed for this game to...
Yeah, makes sense. They were on top of the world at one point, and, well, teamfight, tactics, everything. They had a lot of things that were successful, but now, 10 years later, not a lot of things they are doing are currently that level of success. In fact, they aren't. Quite opposite, in fact, which is really bad. So now they're obviously starting to think, well, maybe we actually need to cut back on frivolous spending.
Be live and perhaps grow and improve based on player feedback. Because, I'm going to be real with you, something like this happening, I think, is counter to the goal of this game eventually turning right. So what's happened is the team is being downsized. Laid off staff will get a chance to apply for jobs elsewhere within Riot, and anyone who can't will get 6 months of severance. But judging by those who have already announced they were laid off, there are fighting game specific staff who simply won't be able to jump ship to somewhere else within Riot. They're just not making other games like it. And as for the game itself, it ain't dead. Riot still have plans to support development and have community-led competitive play.
Well, Starfield is technically also not dead.
You know, just in a way that reflects how much money they think they can make from it. I mean, they're still teasing and showing off new characters, so the game isn't dead. But here's the thing with this game. 2KXO was always going to struggle. It's a free-to-play niche subgenre of fighting game that I think would always be tough to make money from, especially when the competitors are paid products. You see, even with heavily monetized cosmetics and battle passes, 2XKO never really had the roster to support massive spending. Now, their new smaller dev team does mean lower costs, sure, but this pragmatism feels absurd the second you zoom out and look at the overall picture. Because this game was in development for 10 years, and Riot somehow didn't have a problem with it until now. So what's happened? What's changed? There's one thing you need to know.
Arcane flopping. Season 1, massive success. Season 2, a little bit too much woke propaganda.
And it kind of kicks off the whole trajectory.
And the story got a lot worse.
Of this. In 2016, it was a bit of a different Riot Games. Now, they purchased Radiant...
Oh, that's actually true. Also, whenever Valorant came out, it was an actual game. Nowadays, you get banned on Valorant if you refuse to participate in a ranked match when your team decides to do furry roleplay in the middle of your match. Yeah, it's not good. This what do they call it in Riot? The CEO of Valorant? I don't know what their position names are assigned to. But the head of Riot, a woman, obviously, because every good company needs a woman, and judging by Microsoft, Indian woman, 10 out of 10. And, well, it's not looking good, because that person who was in charge of the whole thing said, oh yeah, we're gonna ban and remove people who are not inclusive, not allies, and, you know, don't support the core whatever the hell that she said. And yeah, obviously, considering that's one of their leads for the game, you need to understand that there's a bunch more of that. And, well, that's why Riot is struggling. They are going extremely, extremely emasculant over time. Especially over the last couple of years, where it seems like they have, well, kind of hired a bunch of activists.
Entertainment. This was part of the same surge of acquisitions and investment that led them towards Hytale, Riot Forge, and even to Valorant. You know, obviously that one worked out. And it wasn't some random indie pickup either. No, Tom and Tony Cannon are the people who launched EVO, and they worked on the creation of the rollback netcode. the big thing that everyone talks about in the FGC, the thing that, devs would be hounded to add because without it, it just feels completely antiquated. So these aren't guys who just participated in the fighting game community, they quite literally built the infrastructure that a lot of the FGC runs on. Now, their studio had been building Rising Thunder. It was a free-to-play fighter that they were making with Seth Killian, another FGC legend, also being on board, so there was real pedigree and talent. Now, the game was cancelled after the Riot acquisition, though it was released to the community with open source servers. Pretty sweet, but obviously, it's not that game that Riot acquired them for. They acquired them basically because of their experience. So instead, the Cannons and their team shifted to Project L. Project L is the game that would become 2XKO. And if anyone could make a fighting game work at Riot, it was surely this team and these people. Now in 2019, they confirmed a new fighting game was in the works, with some early hints that it would feature League of Legends characters. Tests in 2023 and 24 revealed the name of the game, 2XKO. Of course, named because you would need 2 knockouts to win. That's kinda cute. But, well, if you're a League of Legends player, you maybe won't know what that is, naturally. If you're any other human, you may recognize KO and think knockout, so sure, a fighting game, but it doesn't feel like a brand. It feels like a cute descriptor. And honestly, it's my opinion that that name and
yeah, pretty much honestly, that name is kind of nightmare fuel.
Such a misfire with branding just completely killed the chances that this would have. I think this was a negative multiplier on everything that they did. Look at other game names. Killer Instinct, Street...
Nah, not even really that, honestly. If I had to blame something, it would probably be the fact that Riot is known for Arcane currently, and League of Legends, and slightly Valorant, or the shit show that is Valorant. They're not really known for anything else. Whenever Riot creates something, and Riot is trying to operate like it was Blizzard back in the Blizzard heydays, it seems like. They think that they don't really need to do that much marketing, they don't really need to do that much anything, and their games are gonna succeed. Which is really strange considering Riot is the company that literally destroyed Dota's chances on ever being a successful game by marketing it literally in London on buses and shit. Riot spent literally hundreds of millions on marketing, and that's one of the reasons everyone knew what League of Legends was, because average normies knew. And now Riot thinks that they are that big that, well, they are that big, but if they release something outside of the core audience, it's like, why would anyone care? You're not releasing anything special. Fighting game audiences are small to begin with. No, they're not small, but the people who want to play fighting audience, that's not the biggest number in the world. So you can't just release something random and be like, oh, look at that. This is what no one cares about because we're Riot. Everyone's going to suddenly care. No, they don't. No, they don't.
Fighter. They just make more emotional sense than the silly name that this game has. Especially because, while they had League characters, there was a massive lack of branding, and the cross-promotion stuff wasn't really that successful. And unlike Hytale, which launched a week earlier, 2XKO just couldn't break through the January doldrums to reach big new audiences. But it might actually be Hytale that exposes 2XKO's biggest problem. Because just like that game, Riot clearly decided that they needed to make money, and the 10 years of development suddenly needed to deliver. Emphasis on the suddenly. And now for the context that makes this all click. So whenever Hytale was cancelled, it was because Riot could no longer invest the funds necessary to ship the game as intended. As intended being the big operative there. Because even though Hytale has launched and has been a big success, it's not the type of success that Riot would have wanted. To Riot, Hytale had to be a Riot-quality AAA game across all of the different platforms. That's why, as an example, they did the big engine rewrite, which humongously damaged the development process of that game, and of course, that's all work that has been scrapped for the Hytale that we now have. And what that insane scope meant is that Hytale was just a game that would happily be taking Riot money to build this big Riot quality AAA thing forever until something changed at Riot. And they suddenly needed something that needed to be shipped or sold, and relatively quickly. With Hytale, that was simply not possible because of where it was. 2XKO was almost certainly in a similar place, just that it was eminently more shippable. as compared to Hytale. And what's rough is that development team, along with others, like some of the Hytale people, they were victims of Riot's hubristic belief that things would never change. Because for nearly 10 years, Riot was comfortable just letting developers simply build, simply develop. Now, they'd been fully acquired by Tencent in 2015. They had League of Legends money. Over the next 5 years, they would have Runeterra money, Valorant money, lots of money. And this meant not a lot of near-term financial pressure. They had more cash than they needed. So what they needed to do with that cash was reinvest it. That's a noble goal, but when you get blasé about money, well, reality can hit you damn fast. Let's take a look at the projects. Riot Forge was never going to make games as successful as League, but to Riot at the time it was about expanding their world, empire building. Arcane was costly, but for many people, it's the best thing that Riot's ever been involved with, quality-wise. And
True, even though Riot was a failure monetarily, it still got a lot of people's eyes once again on League of Legends and Riot. So that's technically a win.
they brought up indie teams like Hypixel and Radiant to make sure those studios could deliver on the promise of their pitched games. You know, not a game that would come out sort of early access, not really finished, maybe a bit of a high guard situation. No, that they would benefit from the Riot money to fully deliver the promise of their games. Riot could give time, funding, and resources, things that are not abundant in the games industry. And they're things that are important, that do work. Do you know what game we praised last year for that exact process? It was this tiny little game, I think about bugs, called Silksong. There's a future then where maybe Riot didn't shit out 2XKO, where it actually got time and its release would have been good enough to capture people's attention. But rather obviously, something inside Riot changed. Let's look at what happened pretty much the moment that it changed. January 2024, it saw layoffs of approximately 11% of Riot. That's 530 people. Riot Forge was ended.
Good old days when people were laid off. I missed them.
Legends of Runeterra lost staff and shifted to PvE as interest in PvP waned. October brought another round. It was smaller, but it was telling. It was 32 people from the League of Legends team itself. Then came the doubling down on expensive monetization-heavy trends for League of Legends. We've talked about those a fair bit in the last few years. It's often been the likes of gacha systems with, yes, a built-in pity, but a built-in pity that pretty much means you're going to be spending an absurd amount of money to get some of the hyper-expensive skins that they've put into that game. Of course, hyper-expensive skins that are fueled by FOMO. Then there's the monetization and loot box changes that had to be walked back so that players, still felt that they had a reason to engage with the game. It was crazy. And then by 2025, Hytale was cancelled and sold. Clearly then, the boom years were over, and the projects that remained had to pay the price. And normally when I'd say that, it would be, like a metaphor or something, but it's actually literal here. They needed to make money. They needed to pay for themselves, and fast. Hytale could not do that, at least.
Yep, League of Legends is still a massively popular game, obviously, but still, League of Legends even is way past its heyday. It's still it's probably the top, 5, easily, most popular games in the world, but it's no longer one. And its user decline is definitely there. Also, acquiring new players, as someone who, by the way, coincidentally, literally started playing this game again in, the past couple of days, I am so fucking confused. It's like, League of Legends, normal gameplay is like an afterthought at this point. You got your earths and the game, it's so confusing. It's like everything's locked behind something. It feels like Shadowlands story progression, or, any Blizzard progression in general. It's like you need to get level 30, and in that time you need to play all these game mods that don't even prepare you for the real game. You can't just play the game normally. And that, I think, is a huge issue, okay? Because Riot seems like to be one of those companies that could face obliteration because it has made the fallacy of thinking that, hey, gamers want simple things, right? Yes, we actually do. Super hardcore shit is not actually the big thing on the market, right? Everyone wants something that can be played just casually. And League of Legends, Riot in general, seems to have absolutely emphasized this mantra. they have made League of Legends in particular into the most casual shit ever. And there is a level where being too casual starts affecting you negatively because people just feel fucking stupid playing your game. The fact that you need to be like, I'm a level 10 and only no, I'm level 12 or something like that. But only at level like 10 or 11 you unlock the ability to change your fucking rune pages, which is insane. Absolutely insane. And until level 20, you don't even unlock the basic default game mode that most people are going to recognize. And a lot of you are probably confused when I say basic default game mode. What I mean by that is you probably remember League of Legends when it was like, okay. Log in, play Summoner's Rift, 5v5, non-ranked, everything's fine. You start off level 1, 500 gold or some shit like that, and you go blast. Well, that's not the case any longer. Now it's like super sped up versions with creeps. The first version of League of Legends you now play is you start at level 3, you get like 1 point something K gold to your name, and if you miss a creep, you get 1/4 of its no, 1/3 ish of its value, and the value is not the normal one. Cannons are worth like 3 times gold or 4 times gold. And leveling is faster. Everything is faster. It's like super jacked up. And nothing of League of Legends is left if you haven't played it for years at this point. You're not gonna even recognize it, and that's bad. It's oversimplified at this point. So Riot is approaching a point where they're gonna have to do scummy things to get money. By the way, that scummy thing to make money already happened. Some of you are probably commenting down in the comments, $500 skins. Yes, that's literally the Blizzard approach of, oh well, our game's failing. How about we start selling $50 portal recolors, just the color. You can pay us $50 for just the color red on your portal if you feel like it, or $100 mount. Yes. And League of Legends is kind of doing that with those $500 skins and whatnot, $200 skins. And, well, the fact that they're doing it is not good. It's not good. It's really, really, really not good. In any case, League of Legends has massive problems. What's going to happen in the future? Are they going to downscale? Are they going to abandon the... I think they're going to abandon the games that are currently not making them enough money. So the core stuff stays. Teamfight Tactics, League of Legends, Valorant, and the card game, which could actually make a comeback, but that's a different topic, I guess. In any case, that was a Billiard Gaming 10 out of 10. Bye!